Hello, everyone. The movie we are reviewing this week is...
watch Oi Blues Brothers.
What this guy said. So, as you probably guessed from the title, since you probably wouldn't be watching this if you didn't want to watch a review of said movie, we watched The Blues Brothers this week. And it is for those of you who don't know, it's a comedy movie with the main actors of John Belushi and Dan Aykroyd, and there's lots of spoilers, so probably don't want to watch this if you haven't watched it, and you should go watch it. We'll wait for you. Everyone, let's wait.
Don't wait. Okay.
Okay. So, I will start off how I usually do, pointing out a few things that stood out to me above the rest, or stood out to me as negative points for the movie. So let me start off with saying that one of my favorite parts of this movie has to be the mood. Because comedies in general, the mood is always very light, and I've seen comedies where mood is sort of skimmed over a bit because it's a comedy or whatever, but mood is very important in comedies. Otherwise, if you don't have a good mood for it, it isn't hilarious. And the thing is, Monty Python, I would say, one of their greatest points is they manage to keep a certain feel and a mood to their movies that makes it so distinctly absurd and funny. So I think that this movie pulls off its mood very well throughout. You've got the chaos where it's broad daylight, you've got people walking around, and you've got this great pavilion with this sculpture, and you've got 100 police cars driving through it, and him honking the horn and getting everyone out of the way. And you've got all this chaos and stuff, and then it cuts to John Belushi standing in an elevator waiting for it to go up. And it's that sort of mood change that is really, truly well done and hilarious in this.
The sculpture he mentioned? That was the sculpture of Jar Jar Binks.
Yes, we might
famous Picasso sculpture.
Yeah.
Right.
It's actually Jar Jar Binks.
No.
Picasso made
not.
Jar Jar Binks.
Fun fact, kiddies. It's actually Jar Jar Binks. So, let's see. Other than that, obviously the music, the soundtrack, whatever you want to call it, also incredibly well done, but I would consider that to be a subset of the mood in a lot of ways. You've got, when it cuts to John Belushi, you've got this, this elevator music that just contributes to the mood, but the music was all set up very well for it. Let's see. Other than that, the car chases are notably pretty good action sequences, in my opinion. The people who, directed the cinematography for the chasing, particularly the final one, did a fantastic job, in my opinion, and it does give a splash of action into this comedy, and it definitely adds to the effect. And lastly, let's see. There was one more thing I was going to say about this. Alright, well, for some reason, my mind has gone blank, and that's quite annoying, so I'm sure that I will come up with it right during the middle one of them is talking, so it's as obnoxious as possible.
Yes, and it's going to be in the middle of when I'm talking, because...
Because reasons.
Right. Okay, so... 10 out of 10, best movie ever. Lockman, go. No. This movie is, as you might have guessed, a comedy. And what's the objective of a comedy? It's to be funny. And this movie is hilarious. So, yeah. Nice job.
Okay,
but, Lockman, I'm not done yet. But anyway, moving on to the...
He was doing this.
As I was saying, moving on to the actual review. Okay, start with the theme. I kinda need help on this one, guys. I'm not sure entirely what the theme was. I mean, I wouldn't say there isn't one. I'm just trying but the theme is always the hardest one to think of. So, can we get back to that?
Making-
Can I help you with
Making-
that a little bit?
Okay.
Making deals with nuns can lead to very bad
Well,
circumstances.
you're on the right track, I think. When you want to know what the theme is, figure out what the climax is, and then what you learn from that, or what the initial question was. Without belaboring this, I think you can probably pretty clearly, easily see what the scope of this was, and it's a bit of a MacGuffin. But you know what it is? What's the question at the beginning that gets answered at the climax? What's the climax?
The climax is when they get the check signed. So the question is, will they get the money for the orphanage?
So will they get the money to the assessor's office in time, right?
Yeah. Right.
All right. So the question is up front when they decide that they're going to go and try to get the money, right?
Mhm.
Okay. So fine, they get the money. So what do we learn? About
I mean,
that.
I guess since they get arrested, it's no good deed goes unpunished.
Well, well, I guess you could you could look at it that way. I mean, and I think in a comedy sometimes these things are less important. The important part of this movie. I'm sorry, Lachlan Bandra, Alan. I didn't mean to insert myself here. The important part is not whether they really get the money there. We sort of assume that that's going to be the ending the whole way through. It's the journey more than
Yeah.
the destination, which is, I think, a valid thing, particularly in a comedy, particularly in something that's going to be heavy in style and mood. Sorry, I'm lecturing, but so what do we learn from this? Well, I mean, they're on a mission from God. So it's I think it's a story about having a goal. That
Right.
with God on your side, anything is possible. Perhaps.
I was about to
you-
say, the theme is having a goal, Daddy.
No, well, yeah. I mean that you have to have a mission in life.
Okay.
You know what I
Right. I would
but,
agree
but,
with
but,
that.
but like I said, I think maybe massage a little bit for this. I have to think about it, but I would say that with God, anything is possible, which is
Okay.
sort of silly. But interestingly enough, I read that as much as the Catholic Church hated this movie initially, and a lot of stuff they actually put it on their list of top Catholic movies to watch, that Catholics should watch. So
Really?
yeah, you can.
That's
take
funny.
that for what it's worth. So they changed their mind on it at some point.
Hmm.
Anyway, you may continue, Alan. I apologize.
Yeah. Okay. So as for the plots, the plot's funny. I mean, it's just sort of, it's all connected. It's not like, it's a consistent storyline. They don't just randomly cut away from to something that is completely unrelated. And I mean, sometimes cutting away to completely unrelated things is the style, and that can work.
Monty Python.
Yeah, but so I guess what I'm trying to drive at. Sorry to harp on this again, but whereas in Mean Girls, that one cutaway gag was the only one in the entire movie. Anyway,
Which one?
Which one?
the one that was really offensive, and talking about and stereotyping homeschoolers. Anyway, so the.
Oh.
But the plot of this one, I thought it hung together very well, especially considering the random musical interludes and
Fit in really well.
I'm trying random musical interludes and the overall. I guess I could say zany. I'm not sure that's entirely the right word, but zany nature of it. So yeah, it was surprisingly good in terms of plot. Well, actually, I've seen this one, so it didn't surprise me this time. Okay, so plot. The characters. I think comedy is largely derived from interesting characters doing interesting things. These characters were interesting, and they did interesting things. I approve.
When they get the rubble rained down on them, they just get up.
Time for work.
Yeah.
It's 9 o'clock. We gotta get to work.
And then the dialogue was hilarious. We're on a mission from God. That is all.
Yes.
Yeah, I thought the dialogue was really well written. And then, as for the spectacle, as far as spectacle goes, when you see a mountain of police cars, I think the spectacle
I think
is
it's
covered.
Yeah.
But in terms of whether it's like good and relevant to the story, yeah, I think so, or at least the style, if not the actual story they're trying to tell. As for the mood, what he said. Yeah, I thought the mood was handled pretty well with good timing and so forth. Lachlan? Or
Okay.
Daddy, if you want to
Go
harp.
ahead, go ahead. Well,
Okay,
no,
I'm
no,
not sure if there's much left for me to say. I hate being the last person. Actually, but when I'm the first person, I also have nothing to say, so.
Yeah, you're like, hey, can you guys talk for...
That's good. No, that's good. But keep digging deep and see. You
Okay,
don't have to say anything if you
so
don't want.
I'll
but-
kind of repeat the same things that both Alan and Andrew said. For one thing, just this movie was amazing. It is definitely going on my top 10 list of top movies that I've seen, and that list now exists because it didn't before. And
You know the Mount Everest riddle? Yeah.
What?
What was the tallest mountain before Mount Everest was discovered?
Mount Everest.
Yeah, because it still existed.
Keep going.
Yeah, okay. So this movie is awesome. And something with a lot of comedies, like Monty Python, even though Monty Python is fantastic.
Fantastic.
It is Mr. Fantastic.
Dude, that guy's name was Mr. Fabulous.
Yeah,
I think.
I was
It is
gonna
Mr.
say it is
Fabulous,
Mr. Fabulous.
It should be Mr. Fantastic.
He's a superhero, I think.
Yes.
Yep. So yeah. But Monty Python has a lot of things that sort of are just kind of like random. For one example, in the
Life of Brian.
argument.
The argument room?
Yeah, the argument.
That
room
wasn't in
at the end.
Oh.
No, I know, but
Oh.
I'm just talking about the difference.
Right.
At the end of the argument room, there's in Monty Python, not this movie. Where there's just a random policeman showing up.
We'll have to decide. He's going to review something else. He has nothing to say about
Monty,
this movie.
what he's trying to say, I will translate it for
No,
viewers
I can actually.
Translate from Lachlanese.
to English.
Um,
Some movies get away with it, but it isn't this movie's
Yeah,
thing.
It isn't. Yes, it is not this movie's thing. This movie has really funny parts that fit in,
Right.
like mountains of police cars, as Alan said, which actually is awesome to watch police cars flipping around in.
Before they actually hit the other cars, press the jump button.
Yeah.
They were like driving along.
Press A to jump.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm not really sure what else.
Okay, well, we
Alright.
could bring on the
Let
questions.
me.
Lachlan is our plucky comic
Yes.
relief.
First of all, since we're on the topic of the plot and that there's nothing that could be left out, I will note that I don't know if you guys caught it. The very last name on the list, the list of actors in alphabetical order in the credits, the last one was so and so as woman left on cutting room floor.
I saw that. I was.
Okay, so
Wait, what?
So it was clearly there was a scene that was left out. They felt
Yeah.
like she probably did a good job, and wanted
Yeah.
to put her name in the credits.
Right.
And so they credited her as woman left on the cutting room floor. The cutting room floor, of course, when you're editing, you literally have pieces of things that was left out.
Right.
And so she was the woman left
Wow.
on the cutting room floor. So
That's pretty cool.
clearly,
Is that in the extended version?
I don't know. It might
Probably.
be.
Probably, yeah.
And that's another thing. Why have an extended version? Well, really, it's because you want to sell more DVDs. Why do things get edited out? Because they're maybe not worthwhile. But let's take what you guys said and suppose that you take a pick the Nazis.
Yeah.
Out of this movie, you cut out those scenes, which would be easy enough to do. Would that be a problem?
No.
I mean, the story would. the Nazis are not essential to the story, but they do add to the humor.
So
it feels kind of like it's one of those things where you don't notice if it's missing. It's only if it's there, you feel like it should be.
Yeah.
If you know what I'm talking about.
if an editor's done a good job,
Right.
and so there was stuff that was decided to be left in, that's where you get these director's cuts and things like that, because frequently the director doesn't get the final say. It's a producer,
Right.
and it's editors that get to do it, but oftentimes when the filming is done, the director's on a bus home, and other people take what was shot and then make something with it, and frequently, a lot of times directors will only try to do one take, because they don't want to give the editors an option of how they're going to do something.
Oh, that reminds me of a funny fact I learned. I'll talk about afterwards.
Okay, go ahead.
Oh no, just the I'm sure you've heard of this. The Star Trek interracial kiss.
Yes.
Do you know?
The first interracial kiss on television was on Star Trek between
William Shatner. There was one cut of it where he simply hugged I forget her name.
Nicole Williams.
He simply hugged her, and then in the other shot, he kissed her, and they were going to try and push for the hug version because they didn't want to cause controversy. Thing is, unbeknownst to the people who were filming it at first until it was too late, William Shatner made funny faces while hugging her. It was like making funny faces so that they would have to use the kiss version. So that reminded me of.
Anyway.
Sorry,
but no, that's legitimate, and that happens all the time. There's frequently when an actor doesn't like a particular take, what they'll do is they'll start
strolling.
They'll swear and throw stuff in the middle of it specifically for that reason, because they want to make sure that doesn't get used, and so
right.
There's a lot of power struggles that happen in production of things. Okay. So, here we have a comedy. I think that you're absolutely right when you talk about, certainly this movie is about spectacle. There's no question about that. It's car chases and beer bottles being thrown and everything, and a whole bunch of goofy people. And it's about mood, because anytime you've got a musical in particular, or you've got music being such an integral part of something, that's what you're looking at. All right, so now you know what you're dealing with in terms of the dialogue is good, the characters are good, but when you get down to theme, I don't think that, he said, about God or whatever it was we said, it's really fairly irrelevant. So sometimes an element will take the back seat, and we really don't care that we walked out of the theater going, wow, I'm a better person because I now know that, that's not going to happen. But within a comedy, one of the things that makes comedy work, one of the principal things, at least according to Freud, is pain. Comedy is about people getting hurt. And it's great to see the other guy slip on the banana peel.
Yeah.
It's not great when you slip on a banana peel. Why is it great when the other guy slips on the banana peel? Go on ahead.
Because we're not the ones getting hurt.
Yeah, but the thing about it is, it's nice to know, oh, he's as human as I am.
Right.
And right, you have this sort of,
you wouldn't want to be a cop in that pileup. That would hurt. That would suck.
And here's the question. Now you have these guys who are criminals, and you see these policemen running into things, getting frustrated, and so on and so forth. Did those policemen deserve that? Did the good old boys, did they deserve the treatment that they got, or anybody else along the way, even the Carrie Fisher character? No, ultimately, they didn't do anything wrong, so why do we dislike it? Because we get crap dumped on us all the time, so to see it happen to somebody else is sort of going, it's not just me. It's everybody. I mean, at least personally,
the universe has a sense of humor.
When I need the police, I'm glad that they're there, and I'm going to give them respect and so forth. But within this realm, within this world that they've created, which is an own specific world, it's okay to mock the police. Right. Not do it unless you've got some sort of mental disorder, and you look at this and go, they're getting the police. And so and same thing with Godfather. I mean, do we really are we really rooting for the mobsters in this thing and for people to get killed? I mean, there's something kind of sick about it, but the joy of a movie is that you get to experience things vicariously that you wouldn't otherwise. But hopefully, if you've got healthy mind, you can walk
Yeah.
away and go, well, not really. You
Right.
know? So anyway, sorry for going
No, that's
on about that. I think that, was this Locke? I don't know who it was that brought up this point, but
It wasn't long.
well, I think maybe we see it in the middle of watching it, that all of a sudden things like Cab Calloway comes out, and he's wearing this bright white suit,
Yeah.
and they've got, you know,
The
this
stage is suddenly
sort of a
transformed.
big band
Oh,
thing and
that's
so
also
on.
something I remembered that I was.
Go ahead.
Talking about. Something about the suspense of belief.
Suspense of disbelief.
Willing suspension of disbelief, which means, sorry, that you come in and you're willing to go, okay, well, this is really stupid. This couldn't happen in the real world,
But I'll watch it.
but I'll go along with it.
Right.
Go on ahead, say what
And
you
I
want.
think they did a really good job with that because
Yep.
there were some things that just did not.
Well, yeah.
They just didn't.
Well, I think
And-
comedies in general have an advantage. of
Yeah,
that.
definitely.
Because you're walking in expecting things like that, or it
Because-
can set it up. If something like, even, a fourth, even something that's way more believable than that, but still a little bit unbelievable happened in, The Godfather Part 1, it would be far bigger of a deal, I would think, than something this, outlandish in this movie. Just because the mood sets up for it.
I'd like to bring attention to cars, the Nazi cars flying.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, they weren't actually flying.
Yeah, they were.
They just
supposedly
went
jumping.
way up
Yeah, they
based
just
on
went
physics.
really high, and
Yeah,
they
they,
floated down
they
slowly.
drove off a broken bridge and then somehow.
Went up in the air and
Over
then
the city.
floated down.
So why do
slowly.
you think you're willing to suspend your disbelief in this movie? That if you had a similar scene in The Godfather, you would be going, "What the heck?" You know what I mean? Why? did
Because
I
it's
get away
funny.
It
I
is,
mean, if you
because
had
they're-
something zany slapstick humor in the middle of The Godfather, it would be a complete tonal shift.
Right.
Here, it fits.
It's a shift. So
Also, it was Nazis flying and falling.
and of course in that case we hate Nazis, so it's
Yeah.
good to see those guys fall in the water
Yeah.
and stuff
Yeah.
like that, But also I will say that Nazis are an easy,
Yeah.
that's a paper tiger.
Right.
That's just a short crowd pleaser, But I think what happens though is when you're, and you mentioned this about going back and forth between the mayhem outside and then them quietly in the elevator, with
Or
girl from
getting the thing
Ipanema.
stamped.
Yeah, and it goes back and forth. This juxtaposition. Well, it's all about the timing,
Right.
of and the editing and getting that just right.
And the movie setting up for it.
But the setting up for it, I think, is the critical thing. Is that early on in your first few minutes, you don't have a lot of riotous stuff, just sort of silly things. I mean,
Right.
he's being given a used prophylactic back.
Yeah.
At the beginning of
With
the
a
thing.
pencil.
And he's being told to stand behind a line and he has to lean forward.
Yeah.
That he's being picked up in a used police car. These are subtle little things that goes, and they're both dressed the
Being
same.
beaten with a stick by a nun.
Right. And so then we build to that and we build. So the writers have got to be, producers over say, we got to get a little buy-in on this stuff.
Right.
But you can never have a joke in the first page of dialogue, and then you have
Right.
little jokes and you have more. And then you say, hey, this is a world where this crazy thing will happen.
Right.
And especially, like I said, in a musical, whatever musical it is, it's, Oklahoma, they just all of a sudden burst out singing and things, and you go, wow, that's...
Or in, what was the duck soup?
Yeah.
You had the
yeah.
courtroom scene.
So,
I
anyway,
gotta say, Duck Soup was one of the weirdest movies I've ever seen.
He should be the president of the United States.
No, you should be
Yeah.
the president of Fredonia.
And he should be the president of the world.
Yes.
so anyway, I think that, I don't know that there's not as many questions you can ask about this as you would Godfather, because it's not,
It's
why this
Yeah.
or why that. You go, who cares? It's just because
Well,
it's funny. Because
yeah.
Ray Charles is
They're very different.
putting up a
Yeah.
poster upside down
Yes.
is just plain funny, and it was a good stupid joke. And
Right.
again, you could cut it out of the movie and it would still be there, and put some other joke in its place, and
Right.
it's all fine. So it's just, but I think the reason for watching it today, and the reason for you guys to watch it, to me, is it's a little bit of a time capsule. This came out the year I graduated from high school, and it sort of
Wow.
speaks to me on that level that these were and I'd seen the Blues Brothers on Saturday Night Live before they were there, and heard
Right.
their music on the radio and so on before they did this. But people like Twiggy, who I know you guys have no idea who she is, was
Right.
very important and impactful at the time. And even what's her name, Carrie Fisher, who hadn't done a whole lot at this point. Probably, I don't know if she did any movies except Star Wars before this.
How
you know
long
what I
was
mean?
this set after Star Wars? How long was
This
set after Star Wars?
was 1980. Star Wars was 1976,
Well,
right?
it was set a long time later.
Right,
in a
but-
galaxy
actually
far,
a
far
long
away
time
from it.
before.
But when was it made?
Yeah, but you said set.
I think
so had to
Star
make the
Wars
joke.
was 76. This was 80, so they probably had The Empire Strikes Back by this point anyway. Did you know, Alan, what the years were on those?
I think Empire Strikes Back was still in the 70s, but like maybe 78.
Something like that. So, so she was
Well-
known, but it was sort of interesting to see her in a different.
That's another example, by the way, the Carrie Fisher thing, of how the mood and the setting of a movie can really change what's, acceptable and good and what isn't. In Godfather, if you had 3 mobsters shoot 10 times at a guy and miss every single time, it would be kind of like, really? They're probably better than this. But you've got Carrie Fisher shooting a machine gun probably hundreds of times, or attacking them lethally
And it
hundreds
just,
of
like,
times,
goes around.
and you've got the machine gun where it goes around them in a ring and stuff, because it wouldn't be enjoyable for her to kill them. It would kill the mood. It would not fit in this
Actually
movie.
kill them.
It would literally kill the mood.
So,
So
it's exaggeration. It's certainly,
Right.
an essential part of the comedy.
Right.
Now, though I can just imagine the stormtroopers watching this and saying, "Who's got bad aim now?"
But
yes,
yeah, well.
sweet, sweet karma.
And I would say the other thing that makes this lovable is because it had so many cameo appearances of people,
Right.
and but the actors were great. There's such specificity
Right.
to it. You know what I mean? That we didn't need a long build up that Ray Charles was blind, because we know Ray Charles, and we know he's blind, and we get the joke immediately coming in on the thing.
And I mean, to a
So the
lesser
fact that he
extent,
goes and he
he
shoots,
shoots,
it
yeah.
at this kid, you just go, okay, this is great, but that's so specific that
Right.
you have a character
Yeah.
Right.
that's just like Ray Charles, because
He
it
is
is
Ray
Ray
It
Charles.
is Ray Charles, yeah.
You know, and that it's not just like an old beat up car that picks him up. It's an old
19, what was it? They even
1974.
said what year it
It
was,
was a
police car
1974.
from Mount Prospect.
from Mount Prospect.
You know,
Right, yeah.
So it's like and it's not just a prison. He's at Joliet prison, which is a famous
Right.
prison, and so on and so forth. They didn't just go to a
random-
banal random office
Right.
building at the end. It was the Civic Center
Right.
in Chicago, for the heart of the city, and the most
Right.
famous thing. The
The sculpture area specific, not just some pavilion.
and Elwood's apartment isn't just a
Right,
general
it's-
apartment. It's the one that's next to the L trains that are going and so on. So
Yeah.
Yeah.
and
And
that's what makes it believable, even while it's absurd.
he doesn't just give them the wrong address. He gives them the address to
Right.
Wrigley Field.
Wrigley Field, because it's an icon.
Right.
And so
If he had just said some random address, it wouldn't have made sense. It's like, okay, why did they go to the wrong address? Is that not his address? But like that's a little joke.
But these guys were all from Chicago. They
Right.
worked in Second City in Chicago, and so that became a thing. And Maxwell Street was no more, but was a great place where people hung out and
Right.
and had this bizarre flea market, there, and we'd sit and sing and stuff. All right, why don't you get your boards and wrap this up? But I have to say that I think that it. One of my recollection was that it was a fine movie, but it really wasn't that well made. In retrospect, I think it was generally very well made.
Right.
And I remember the mall, by the way, too. That
That
for
car
years.
going around.
Yes, the that was the Dixie Mall or something like that, far south of Chicago actually. And they went there and they filmed it. It was a mall that had closed up and was abandoned.
Right.
And so they did all of that stuff, and apparently
Oh!
they thought that the mall was supposed to be, the movie people would fix the mall up
Right.
afterwards when they were
Right.
done, and they didn't. And so I just read in the thing that it was actually 2 years ago that they finally leveled the place
Nice.
that had been sitting there just sort of
Broken.
down dinosaur. I mean, it was
Right.
just an awful part
Right.
of town.
I
so,
will say that reminded me of the other thing I was going to mention in my original thing that I just now remembered right as we're doing the scores. So the thing I remember now was that I'm sure it wasn't impossible or anything, obviously, but for the directors, the people who tell everyone where to go, they had a really large group of bystanders and whatever to have, and you've got these odd things like when they're dancing in the street, the one lady sort of doing this like limbo-y dance or whatever, you've got all these people doing these like little differences or whatever, these subtle differences that makes it feel more real. So I thought that was really cool.
We saw the cat. They had the crew at the end. I don't suppose that was actually the full crew.
I don't think that was the full crew.
The bystanders are often not really
Right.
in the...
Right, they're just like, here, want to
No,
pay you to be a bystander.
Well, yeah. No, there's
Orange, please.
extra
Orange, please.
casting directors who
Orange
have that, and then usually it's the third AD or somebody who will be responsible for telling the extras how to move and what to
Right.
do and all that sort of stuff. But obviously there was a great deal of choreography in things past that. And in a case like that, again, I'm guessing, but typically they go around to all of the local dance studios and stuff and say,
Sure.
you guys want to be in a movie, come out here.
Yeah.
Everybody's usually surprised because they, oh yeah, we're going to do that. And they get there and they end up sitting around for hours and hours and hours, and then they had learned their thing and they do it and they realize.
Right.
But typically that's why they have to have real extras that are known and know how to do this stuff, because last thing they need is somebody who's really unimportant getting paid $10 an hour, if that, and $5 an hour, back then probably less, causing trouble and getting into things. They want people that really know what they're doing. So, and it's remarkable. Anytime you see a movie and there's a crowd scene,
Right.
all of those people are orchestrated. Okay, I want you to go here, and these people are going there, and the guy in charge of the extras will go up to each one and say, okay, what you are is you're a businessman,
Right.
and you're late for a meeting, so I want you to run.
Right.
And you're meeting her, she's gonna be your girlfriend, and you guys kiss, and they make up little stories for all
Right.
of that stuff going on in the background.
Pretty impressive.
Yeah, there were some scenes in here where clearly they just sort of shot the thing, and there was a crowd gathering, looking and just sort of
Right.
gawking because they were, but they
Yeah.
left it in.
All right.